Hello dear friends, welcome to the Center for Research and Security Studies. Today we are embarking on a new conversation, and that would be the think tank talk. The objective of the think tank talk would be to focus on critical issues that face not only Pakistan but also its immediate vicinity. So basically fleshing out issues that are transboundary in nature as well. It could be security, it could be climate security, it could be traditional, non-traditional security, just because there are so many problems that Pakistan is currently facing as well as the rest of the region. Today we are going to focus on climate change. Climate change is the buzzword these days across the globe, and we also face the consequences of climate change in the form of floods, devastating floods in 2022, and that's why we have with us Mr. Ali Tawqir Sheikh. He's a very prolific writer, very ardent follower of the climate change issues. He's a globetrotter, lecturing and informing the world of what's happening in Pakistan as far as the water issues or the climate change induced issues are concerned. So thank you very much, Ali, to be here. And let's kick off the conversation with a very simple question. How serious is
First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts. And I want to commend you and your colleagues for initiating conversation on such an important issue. This is an issue of immense importance to Pakistan. It combines human security, ecological security, and national security. In fact, this is a triangle. In some ways, I see that this is a broken triangle. In my humble view, national security is not possible unless there is human security and ecological security, and vice versa. We cannot achieve ecological security unless there is human security and national security. So presently, it's a broken triangle. The challenge is for us to see all these three dimensions in an integrated fashion.
Yeah, but that is a very uphill task. You're talking about the broken triangle. Why is it broken?
First is that some challenges are victim of our traditional thinking. The traditional thinking since the Napoleonic or earlier times is that national security is paramount. We never paid much attention historically to human security. We always took it for granted. And there is some difference between European history and South Asian history. In European history, probably the universities were set up sooner than they were in South Asia. Education was started in several countries before South Asia. In our case, human security entry was much later. And when Pakistan became independent in 1947, human security was just a brand new thing for us. And we started focusing on it slowly but surely. If you look at our early economic development plans, education and health were very important issues. But then we were under siege from day one in terms of national security. But our consciousness about ecological security started coming to us after 1990s. And therefore it's a later entry. And for so many years we always thought that ecological security is not our responsibility or it is exaggerated. It's only now that we see that ecological insecurity undermines national security and it undermines human security. And therefore we see that in some ways now the national security has become hostage to ecological security.
But do you think now there is enough realization that at least the officials and the government departments that are dealing with these issues, they are now perhaps more in an accelerated way looking at this because of the recurring nature of the natural disasters that have struck Pakistan in the last 10, 12 years?
Actually, it's a very difficult question to respond, and I'm glad that you asked this difficult question. The responses can be at several levels, and some levels can be inaccurate, but they can help us think more clearly. So in some ways it resembles perestroika of Gorbachev. When you have to reform a system and you don't know how to do it, you have to start with rethinking. And rethinking in an established order is a very, very difficult challenge. So in some ways, those who have been responsible with human security and national security, for them it's a stage of perestroika. A new thinking has to sink in. It is also...
But perestroika requires also a new mindset.
Absolutely a new...
And do we see that?
And it has to dawn on people that a restructuring is required. It has to dawn on people that reallocation of resources is required. People now need to think that you have only $1. How do you distribute between ecological security and human security and national security? So it also becomes some ways a competition, hopefully a healthy competition of resources between three different competing demands on us. And it is on us because in this boat, everybody is together. Nobody can swim alone. And therefore, I think this difficult question that you have raised, it's a new issue, a new conversation. Many societies are struggling with it. Many departments and ministries are struggling with it. Many regions are struggling.
But here, let me stop you here. There's a new thinking required for this. It has to dawn on the people who are at the helm of affairs. But would you agree that currently Pakistan is being governed by a 19th century mindset, the governance structures, the way they are laid out, the way we are trying to deal with the issues? So can you deal with the issues of natural disaster, climate of 2023 with the 19th century mindset?
Well, governance is your specialization, you know better than I know. The dream of Pakistan was equity and justice. And society is yearning for justice, climate justice, water justice, access to ecological resources, justice for this, protection and preservation of the heritage. Our faith and our religion, our traditions, our civilization all begs for this. It is not possible for us to keep on swimming now without ensuring that a justice is brought in the society for human security and national security. And this competition of resources that I was referring to earlier, it is at the heart of the issue. The heart of the issue is that you have only $1. And if you think your gun can protect your ecology, it cannot. And if you think only ecology can protect the state, that is not true. And if you think undernourished human beings or underdeveloped human beings can be pride of this country, that is not true. So going back to the dream of this country was the justice and quality of life of the people living in part of the world happen to be Muslims.
So you are raising a very critical issue because it's like breaking my stream of thought the way I wanted to structure this interview. You are basically suggesting that Pakistan, the citizens of Pakistan lost the chance, the right to equity and justice to traditional security?
In many, many ways that has happened to us. You can very well argue that Pakistan was not the only country or only state where it happened. But please also remember that we have always been under siege or too weak to resist international interests and pressures, and we winked and became subservient to that. Having said that, when we look at the world indices on health, on education, on equity, on justice, on nutrition, on stunting, then we say there must have been something that's missing. And that something missing is that our ecosystems have begun to collapse. They are on tipping point. The productive capacity has diminished. They're not able to give us food security that we deserve as human beings. They're not able to give us water, even though we have plenty of water. We're not short of water. The problem is our water is not effectively or efficiently managed and equitably shared. So at the heart of this is a new paradigm that we need to develop, that a new Magna Carta that will govern our society. And that Magna Carta empowers people including women, including children, including minorities, including Balochis and Sindhis and everybody else. But having said that, it's not to disempower someone, to empower someone. It is to educate and facilitate that someone that will need to relinquish some of the resources for the others to also get share of the pie.
Yeah, but given the current governance structures, do you think they have the ability to respond to all these challenges, stem the rot, and also prevent further degradation of the environment, of the climate, which also then directly impacts the livelihoods, the productivity of the country?
And this is the ultimate challenge that you are referring to leadership. The leadership for this country is no more incremental changes. It's not increasing the taxation ratio and recovery by a certain percentage, or productivity increase by a certain percentage, or foreign exchange earning by a percentage. I'm talking about is transformational change, and that has to be led by our system. The system is now at that point that you refer to, where it's very vulnerable and very fragile. There cannot be a sequencing that will fix political order first, and then we'll look at the ecological issues. I think the leadership challenge is to have the vision, to reimagine, re-envision the country how it should be, and then see how we want to live as a civilized country in the community of nations. Please remember, we are lagging behind in just about every indicator that we as Pakistanis aspire to have. Now for this thing to happen, the country will need to begin and unleash an energy or a process. It will take us many years to correct the journey and its direction. The results may not come very quickly, but the more we delay, harder and more expensive it will become for all of us.
But let me get to the last point of this conversation. Is this lack of imagination, lack of readiness to address these latest issues that the foreign donors, other countries have also lost trust in the system? Pakistan lobbied a lot, both in New York as well as in Geneva, to mobilize funds after the devastating floods of 2022. There were a lot of pledges worth $8-9 billion, but do you think something came of that, and why it didn't happen?
Well, I want to go back for a moment for the fundamental reasoning for this. For way too many years, we isolated ourselves from global discourse. When the global discourse was looking at sustainable development, we were converting ourselves into a national security state. And as national security state, we did not put premium on learning what were the global trends, what was happening in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of productivity, in terms of technology transfer, in terms of global negotiations under WTO, and taxation regimes in different countries, and import and export policies and progressive policies. We did not learn from other countries. How did Bangladesh or Iran manage its population growth rate? How did Singapore or Malaysia laid the foundation for a stronger governance? How did many countries like Costa Rica deliver their security with fewer resources? Now, so we have created a gap. The gap is between us and the world. And that gap has also now engulfed us in terms of credibility gap. Because the system's ability to deliver efficiently, transparently, and in a timely fashion is very, very limited. I oftentimes say that the resources is not the issue. Absorptive capacity is the issue. Pakistan, whatever resources it gets, it's not able to spend them. And every few years, Pakistan's development partners repackage and repurpose their earlier allocated financing. And that's exactly what happened in Geneva also. The project that they had already committed, but we had not been able to disperse money and spend those, they were harvested, the funds were taken up from there and repackaged as a support to the climate-induced floods in Pakistan. So the challenge in terms of nuts and bolts of credibility gap rests in our ability, our institutional ability to spend, to have systems in place that can spend systematically and effectively in a timely fashion. And that is a very big challenge for Pakistan.
That's an excellent point you just made, and this also reminded me of a number of conversations I've had with a few foreign dignitaries, including ambassadors, who pointed exactly to the point that Pakistan has been missing from a number of discourses, like on artificial intelligence, scientific cooperation, on fintech, on global negotiations, as you pointed out. And Pakistan has also been missing from the climate change discourse. So that's why the gap has indeed risen. Thank you very much. That is an excellent conversation. Friends, you saw that Ali Sheikh Sahab says the challenge is enormous, very daunting, time is short. Resources for a country like Pakistan are also very limited, and it will take quite a while and very revolutionary, forward-looking, progressive leadership to cope with the challenges that are upon Pakistan in terms of climate change. Thank you very much.